everyone, and welcome once again to the Open Mic, Writers in Their Own Words, the show where every episode I talk to writers, editors, agents, various other folks from around the publishing game to learn a little bit about them, the work they do, and hopefully how their experiences and insights can help others who are interested in becoming a successful writer. I am Rich Eisen. I am a journalist by trade. I have been for many decades now. I've covered everything in the world from Congress and the Supreme Court to these days the California State Legislature, as well as business and the arts and any number of other things. Sports, I did uh, covered all three major professional sports for a few years as well before I moved into what I do now. So I've been
Now
around
you
at
did
this.
freeze.
Yes, yes. Been doing this for a long time. So, really quickly, before I introduce my guest, please take a moment, hit the subscribe button so you never miss a future episode. And you can do that either on YouTube or on whatever podcast platform you're using. And if you like what you hear or see today, please tell a friend. That is the best way for endeavors like this one to continue gaining an audience, which is, of course, what I would love to see happen. A nice review at any of those venues is also great. And I deeply appreciate you doing any of those things. And if you really hate the show, don't tell anyone. Just keep it to yourself. Anyway, on with it. For more than 2 decades, the Men of Mystery Conference in Long Beach has celebrated the many great men who write the mysteries that so many of us love. Established in 2000 by the late Joan Hansen, this very popular event is put on these days by my guest today, Jan Wilcox and Cindy Woods. Over all these years, Men of Mystery, or what we all call MOM for short, has featured a literal who's who of great male mystery writers. And this is just a list, a partial list of some of the folks who have been at this conference over the years. T. Jefferson Parker, Matt Coyle, C.J. Box, Michael Connelly, Baron Birtcher, Stephen Mack Jones, Brad Thor, Lincoln Child, William Kent Krueger, and this year's headliners, Craig Johnson, and some guy you may have heard of, Walter Mosley.
Mhm.
That is an all-star lineup by anybody's definition of all-star lineups. And so, um, as I noted, this is their 25th anniversary. So I'm really, really pleased to have Jan and Cindy here with me today on the open mic, Writers in Their Own Words, to tell me a little bit more about the conference's history, how this year's event went, which was a couple of weekends ago. And we are recording this as we speak today on Veterans Day, November the 11th. So the conference just wrapped up. And then hopefully a little bit about its future. So, Jan and Cindy, thanks for coming on the show today. How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rich.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. We're doing great.
That's really cool to hear because I have to tell you, Mom is one of the favorite Men of Mysteries, one of the favorite conferences I've ever been to. It's not huge. It's not BoucherCon, where you get thousands of people. But it's a really great size. And gosh, the turnout of writers for this is so impressive, as I noted. Um, As I also noted, it's the 25th anniversary. So tell me a little bit how the event went and what kind of things you did for this year's 25th anniversary event.
Um, I'll speak first about how the event went. It was fantastic.
Everybody, the room was so loud you could hardly hear each other speak because of the excitement. And all of the authors were at their tables signing books, and the people were shopping in the bookstore. And it was just phenomenal. And Craig Johnson was a huge success. As you know, if you have seen him before in action, he captivates a room, and he goes anywhere from, talking soft to little drama and even yodeling. He's quite animated, and the men and women all love it. It's like a mutual, appreciation. And of course, Walter, I'll let Cindy speak about Walter, but I just wanted to say that if it weren't for the great authors and for the fantastic support of the attendees, all of our guests, of course, it wouldn't exist. And so that's the key to the success, actually, is the participation of everybody. And there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Jan hosted Craig Johnson this year, and I got to host Walter Mosley, which was, of course, a treat. We had him in conversation with Les Klinger, who is the president of the Mystery Writers of America LA chapter. And they had a lovely conversation. It was very interesting. They talked a little craft and they talked a little history and just writerly things. We had over 200 attendees, so it was a nice size event. It is, as you said, it isn't BoucherCon, but it's intimate enough to be everybody gets a chance to be collegial, but at the same time, it's big enough that it has a lot of spirit. And it was just a really lot of fun this year. We had 28 authors this year, which is terrific.
28. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Well, and I think what's really great, I think about Men of Mystery is the size of it, the location, the way everything is set up to where it's really welcoming for the fans. This is really a fans event. And you can learn a lot, of course, about writing. And I know the writers, we all loved interacting with each other, but you really get a chance to meet the fans and hear from the fans. Maybe talk about that a little bit about
Mhm.
what the fan experience is like at a Men of Mystery gathering.
The tables are all pre-assigned. The authors are at their tables, and the attendees get an opportunity to select from the list of authors approximately 8 choices, and then we work it out so that everybody gets an author of their choice. So the tables are very happy, and everybody loves being able to walk in and sit down at the table with the author. They love the opportunity to rub shoulders and talk to them during the whole entire day. But there is a specific time that happens during lunch when Cindy announces that it is table talk time. And so that's when the host of the table monitors and to make sure that nobody else is talking amongst themselves or trying to monopolize the author, which is always something that we have to watch for.
Be aware of.
Yes, and then they all ask questions of the author, and the author fields it, and it makes it even more special. It's like he's on stage answering all these questions, but it's at a more intimate setting at a table.
The way the day works, we start off with welcoming everybody, and then every author has, as Jan said, every table has an author, so everybody gets to sit with an author, which is a lot of fun. And then they have 1.5 minutes to just introduce themselves and their books. So we have a young woman that walks around with a microphone, and we have a list of the authors, more or less alphabetically. And they each have 1.5 minutes to introduce themselves and their books, and it goes quite quickly. It's a lot of fun. We never kind of know what they're going to say, but sometimes they kind of do call outs to one another. My favorite is one year we had 3 archaeologists and didn't realize it. And so they were like making archaeological jokes across the room at each other. And it's a lot of fun. And then we have a morning speaker or a panel. We have a break for lunch where people can go meet the authors, buy books, get autographs, and so on. And then we come back and then we have an afternoon session with another either author or panel. So it's not a long day, but it's a full day.
One
Yeah,
other thing I want to say, sorry,
no, go
is
ahead, Jeff.
in the old days when it first began, there were 50 authors.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes, yeah. And so at that point, they were allowed only 1 minute to talk. And so now with with it basically cut in half, they get a minute and a half, and they go over a little bit, but it's not too bad. And that's really their only time, the table people's time to talk to the entire room. So that's an important part, and everybody loves that part because they get to hear from each author in the room, whereas they wouldn't if they didn't have that opportunity to stand up and talk.
Well, I tell you, as many authors, and I'm sure a lot of authors are kind of introverted. So I'm sure a minute and a half feels like plenty of time for them to talk and to a whole room of
Generally
people.
speaking, it's enough.
I'm
Yeah.
sure. So I mentioned Joan Hansen in my intro, and tell us a little bit about her and how Men of Mystery started and how maybe it evolved over the years. from her to you guys.
That's for Cindy because she's been there for the whole run.
Just about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't start until actively about 10 years ago.
Right. Yeah, well, Joan Hansen was an educator in Long Beach. She was a high school English teacher and became an assistant vice principal and was active in all of the teacher organizations, the National Association of Teachers of English and California Association of Teachers of English, all those sorts of things. And she was really active in loving to have events where people got to interact with writers. That she wanted everyone to read, and she really wanted to introduce people to writers. And she'd started an organization called the Literary Guild of Orange County, which is our sister organization. And it was mostly women attending, of course, and they were women authors. So she was thinking, oh, I really want to do something that brings men in. And her thought was to do mysteries because mystery writers, men would read mysteries. And our first treasurer was a professor at Long Beach State, Jim Day, Dr. Jim Day. And his commentary was, Joan, there's only two things that will bring men to an event, sports and pornography. Are you interested in producing either of those? And she said, no, but mystery still sounds like fun. So she started Men of Mystery. And there's always been a really active committee that does a lot of the behind the scenes work. So the first year, I think they had about 40 authors. Every year she beat the bushes and went to all the conferences and went to all BoucherCon and Left Coast Crime and every place she could be to try and recruit new authors. And that's part of the reason we've had such marvelous authors. Since then, Jan has been the one beating the bushes for the main speakers mostly. But we've had these just wonderful, as you mentioned. I mean, we have a who's who of authors that we've got, and it's still fun. After 25 years, the reason that we love doing this is it is a fun event.
Yeah, it is fun. And it's a passion for both of us. And that's what keeps driving us forward. And also, I really love the title, Manhunter.
Well,
that's what Joan used to call herself. And I thought, I can get behind that.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask this question later, but since you brought it up, let me ask it now because you have always managed to get some of the biggest names in the genre to come, not just be headliners, but to just come and be a participating author, whether they get to the top billing or not. And that's a hell of an accomplishment, actually, when you think about how in demand a Walter Mosley or a Craig Johnson or a William Kent Krueger, these are folks who are unbelievably successful and they get asked to do so many of these things, and yet you always manage to get these folks to come. And I have talked with enough of them in other places where they have said how much they love doing Men of Mystery. It is one of the things they put on their calendar and they're very aware of to do. So I'm curious, obviously maybe Joan set the table for you a little bit, but Jan, you've picked up the ball and really run with it. How has that experience been for you? And did you ever have years where you struggled and thought, oh, where it's getting late and I can't get any of these folks I wanted to get? Did you ever have any of those, or has it always been something where, like I say, they're kind of lining up to participate?
One of the questions that you were going to ask, I think, at some point was, what was it? Well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, one of the things that Cindy and I both do is anytime there's a signing or an appearance and it's advertised and it's local, we make it a point to go. And we meet that author, somebody an unknown, and tell them about Men of Mystery, exchange cards, and by the time we leave the event, they are very interested. And then I follow it up with emails and conversations. And the fact that we do have such a good history of attendees of the different authors, it inspires anybody new to join the group. And then also a lot of the authors, like one author this time was not able to come at the last minute. And he said, do you want me to find another author for you? And I said, sure. So he found somebody for us and I communicated with him. And the guy he was San Diego fellow. And he was so happy And also I do work on it all year. We start right in January, and one year I actually in December I had the headliners for the next year. I was thrilled with that, and then COVID hit, and and so that was a real disappointment. But then you were involved in that because we decided to do the Zoom, and it was fabulous. It really worked out well. That was with Brad Thor and Hank Felipe Ryan, and also who else did we have?
Yes.
Uh,
Johnson.
I think I interviewed Neil Griffin,
Yes.
because
right,
Neil is a friend of mine, and then I did one more for you, and I had the opportunity to talk with William Kent Krueger, T. Jefferson
right.
Parker, and Craig Johnson, and that was all over
That's the
Zoom.
one. That's
Yes.
the one that was in 2019
Yeah.
or 2000, pardon me, 2020, I believe.
Yeah.
But so to conclude the question, how do we get the people? Hunt them like a bloodhound.
Well, and
we have
I think the question you were referring to that I had said I wanted to ask was how much effort you seem to put into and what a great job you've done of giving small press authors an equal
Yes.
platform. And so it sounds like, that's very intentional. You have reached out and, just to name check a few, like people like Eric Beetner and folks like that are great writers, really, really solid, good writers, but
Yep.
maybe don't have the profile of a Walter Mosley, right? And yet,
Right.
Men of Mystery is such a great venue. Or Baron Birtcher, who's just a great author.
Yeah.
My gosh, everybody that loves mystery should know about Baron Birtcher. But there's only so much room at the top of the pyramid for everybody, and so the Grishams and the Connellys eat up a lot of that space, but they're so
Right.
great, so many great writers, and you guys have done a great job of finding and including those folks and giving them the kind of notoriety or attention, I should say, that they need. So I've always appreciated it as a reader because I've discovered a tremendous number of new authors that way.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure that's probably the question you're referring to. Um, I can only imagine there are more highlights than you can really remember, and you probably don't want to exclude anybody, but
Yeah.
are there particular events or experiences that you've had with MOM over the years that really stand out to you as something you say, this is why I do it?
Well, we can tell you one thing. Try and pick, say, a favorite author or a favorite team of authors would be like asking you to pick your favorite child.
Sure.
Of course, they're all our favorites. This year our favorites are Craig Johnson and Walter Mosley and Les Klinger because that's who we just had.
Sure.
But one year we had Alexander McCall Smith.
Yeah.
Joan got him, which was quite a coup. He came over from Africa. And we had 500 people
Oh,
packed
wow.
into the Marriott with 60 authors. And it took an entire hour, 1 minute apiece. We had to take a break in the middle to do stretches. It was really fun. It was a totally different timbre than what we do now. It didn't have the intimacy, but it was a grand event and it was really a lot of fun. We don't really look for that kind. I mean, we're always looking for the best authors we can get, of course, but we don't look to do 500 people every year anymore.
No. It was you could barely move in the room. It was hysterical. It was really, really, and he wore his whole Scottish outfit. He had he had his tartan on and his knife in his sock and the whole thing.
Yeah.
The only thing that would have been better is if my daughter came with her bagpipes.
There you go. There you go.
Well,
That would have been great.
several years ago, a good friend of mine passed away from a brain tumor, and so several of us got together and we formed a 501c3, and now every year we put on a golf tournament in September and we raise money for the National Brain Tumor Society. And we had, I mean, well, it started with 8 of us. Now there are 6, but we have a small army of volunteers, all of those things. My point is, it is a year-round endeavor. And
Exactly.
and Jan, you noted that you work on it all year. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things maybe people don't appreciate when they come to these things, or maybe don't realize, is just there is not really that much time off ever. I mean, you may be a little around the holidays, you can breathe for a moment, but when you're trying to put on an event like this that you care deeply about
Yeah.
people having a good experience, it is
Right.
something you have to live. And
Right.
so I guess the question there is, you know, does, have you ever felt like, okay, I don't know how much longer I can do this because it eats me up, right? I mean,
Well, the afternoon after the event, yeah, we're always asking that. Can we do this again? Yeah, once we take, get some sleep and relax a little bit,
Yeah,
yeah.
and maybe
that's
the
all.
right question is how long does it take you to decompress after the day of the event? Is it weeks, months, days?
Well, I'd say pretty much 2 days.
Yeah, it's
We're
about
ready.
'You're ready
48
to
hours and
go.
we're back to
Yeah,
going again.
yeah.
Yeah.
You probably
One of
already
the
have authors saying, I want to be part of this next year.
We
Absolutely.
do.
Yeah,
We
we
do.
do. We do.
Yeah.
One of the things that we try to do is to make sure that all the authors that come have a fairly current book
Hmm.
because we want to be encouraging book sales. And if they don't have a current book and they were with us last year, they might get some book sales, but it's not going to be, they're not going to make the bestseller list that week as a result of coming to our event if the book has been out a long time, which is, the case. But another thing that I think really makes a difference is, and because I'm a maniac on the computer, I communicate with every single attendee that has signed up, and I put on my wedding planner hat, and that's when all of the tables start coming together. And afterwards, we have pictures, and I send the pictures to the author and the people at the table. And it's a lot of personalization.
Hmm.
And I don't think that people have that kind of a treat in most settings. And it's because it's our passion. We love doing
Sure.
it.
Well, I would agree with that. And, I'm really glad you mentioned that because I think it's another thing that makes Men of Mystery a very unique event. And look, I mentioned BoucherCon earlier, Left Coast Crime, there's Thriller Fest. Every conference has its own thing, right? They're all a little different. The thing that for me that made Men of Mystery such a great thing, it's intimate, as you said, but it really does feel like a gathering of friends. And
Yeah.
I'm really glad you mentioned it because big time kudos. You really do communicate well with people, not in an obtrusive way, but in a way where, you really feel welcomed if you're
Yeah.
coming to the event. You feel like people,
Right.
hey, I'm not just some name that signed up. They care about me. Rich Eisen is
Yeah.
coming to this event.
Yeah.
And that's a really great thing because, BoucherCon is, I don't mean to pound on BoucherCon, but, BoucherCon is so big that they can't really do that. And it's just the
No,
two of
no.
you. And I imagine how many, you mentioned there's other folks. I mean, how many other volunteers maybe are part of what it is you do?
Well, we have all the hosts all of the committee fits in to be a host. And so we had 28 authors, so that's 28 hosts. We also have co-hosts. And sometimes I do lean on previous people that were on the committee that are now kind of backed off. They're too busy or whatever, but they always welcome the opportunity to host. And I even dip into the Sisters in Crime pool and have a few of those people come and be a host. And that's a real coup for them because they're getting somebody that they can bring to one of their events.
Sure.
And
Sure.
so, that it all kind of works in harmony. And it's the old adage, too many cooks in the kitchen is really real. You can't farm out too many things because it's more work to manage the puppies, manage the cats, and that sort of
No, it's
thing.
true. It is true.
Yeah.
We have, in our thing, we've discovered it as well. It's just
Yep.
better. I managed all of our volunteers, and so we have parceled things out really well. And this is leading to a question. I'm the tournament director by title, so I deal with the golf course. I manage the
Right.
the on-course games that we do in addition to the playing of golf. I manage our volunteers, and if it has something to do with the tournament, the playing of the tournament, I'm in charge of that. We have other people that are in charge of all the finances. We have people that are in charge of the
Right. Right.
graphics and the advertising.
Right.
We have somebody that's in charge of managing paying our taxes and things like that. So
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
we've really found a very comfortable slotting for all of us that we work to our strengths, right? I mean, I'm in media, so if we do any TV or radio stuff, I'm the one that's in directs all that.
Right.
So long-winded lead into a question. it seems like Jan, you and Cindy have found that same kind of very hand in glove thing where you work together, and it's not inconsequential. It is hard sometimes to do things when there's even two people that are doing it. So,
Yeah.
how would you
Yeah.
describe your working relationship for putting on such a successful event for so long?
I think we've worked a tremendous partnership. Cindy has her strengths, I have my strengths, and we just forge ahead. I'm a caller. I call her a lot, and I say, okay, this, and this, and she goes, yeah, yeah, and it's so we're both aware of what's going on. There's no surprises, and I think that that's important. You have to have that strong line of communication.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
we do have a group of probably 35 or 40 volunteers that come in for the event.
Mhm.
And then there's probably about 12 of us that do most of the work during the year.
Yeah.
That meet regularly, that handle the finances, people handle registration and book sales and all the different kinds of things.
Yeah.
So we do have a team of people, but fortunately, we like each other. So yeah, it makes it a little easier to work
Yeah.
together.
And we accidentally found out that
Yes.
we have tops that match. And so this is our uniform. A few years ago, I found the hats and I went, oh God, I got to buy these. So that's our persona now.
Yep.
Hey, persona is not a bad thing.
Yep.
That's not a bad thing at all. Um, well, one of the big questions, of course, is 25 years is a long time to keep anything going.
Mhm.
Um, what do you credit this longevity to? I mean, we've talked about a lot of things, but is there anything we left out that you would think is, this is one of the real underpinnings of what we do?
I think that the tenacity and the dedication is the primary point. I mean, if we didn't have somebody like Cindy and I, leading the parade, it wouldn't happen. It would not happen because it's a big job, and most people aren't really ready to take on that kind of responsibility. Um, I'm trying to think what else I was going to say about that. It's as far as the future goes, it's just a matter. I think that the authors, the core of authors that love it so much are the ones that move us forward and perpetuate our efforts because they love it so much and they go, well, when is it going to be, and then they even make suggestions on other authors that maybe
Right.
we ought to invite, and and we try to have an even portion of new authors and return authors. It doesn't work that way usually, but at least we'll get at least 10 new authors. And of course, right to the last minute, somebody has an emergency, somebody this, that. So you have to have a waiting list. And then when you call upon the waiting list, they're very excited. And so boom, it just keeps happening.
One of the other things that even though we are called men of mystery, we have
Right.
had some women who have been
That's right.
who have been main speakers. We tried to kind of slide them in, if you will, by having women with male sounding names. So we had Hank Philippi Ryan, of
Yeah.
course, who's a major author.
Right.
We had Joe Perry, Tom Perry's now widow, unfortunately, who was one of our main speakers. And we had S.J. Roseanne last year, who was here with John Nee, who was her co-writer on her latest set of books.
Mhm.
So we have had women authors, and we hope to expand that a little bit. We hope to have some women authors as we go along too.
It's kind of
I
interesting.
I
There was a
wonder, just really quickly, I wasn't, this was not an original question, but what you just said made me think about this a little bit because, I remember years ago having an opportunity to spend a little time talking with J.A. Jance, and she talked about, and of course, people around her know her first name is Judy, and, but
Right.
she talked about, when she first started getting into this, having an editor tell her, well, men aren't going to read a mystery written by a woman. And so they used her initials so people would not immediately presume, oh, I don't want to read that.
Right.
And I think for a long time there was definitely a feeling that women were not, even in spite of some of the great women authors in the mystery category going back many, 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 many years, there was still a feeling that in general, in the broader picture, people expected mysteries to be written by men. So that has evolved. Obviously, there's so many, many great female authors now. Did anyone ever come to you and say, "Hey, why are you excluding women?" Or what
Oh,
aren't there enough
yes.
events? I mean, do you guys
Yes.
get flack for that at all?
Well, in many cases, when that happens, we explain to them that we have a sister organization, which is the women, the Literary Guild of Orange County. And that seems to satisfy some people, but then they persist and they say, but why aren't you incorporating them more? Why don't you have them more on stage? And we're working, and we have done that. We have worked on doing that, but it's kind of a tightrope because in fact, one of the comments that I got after the event this time, the table was discussing getting more women involved. And one of the authors said, I love this organization. I love the way the format is because it is all men. And it's different from everything else. It's different than this, that, and the BoucherCon, the Left Coast Crime, any of the other conferences where they focus mostly on getting anybody and everybody involved. And so the person that was sharing this with me said, "What's a girl to do?" It's like you can't satisfy everybody.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I'm sorry, you cut out just briefly. What was the name of the other organization you mentioned?
The Literary Guild of Orange County.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And we've always had, nowadays, the Literary Guild used to do a really huge 2-day event that was a lot of work. We now do a salon that's probably either once or twice a year. In the evening, it's usually a dinner, and we have 3 authors. Of those authors, always one of them, they're all women, and always one of them is a mystery writer. This last year, we actually had 2 that I would sort of consider mysteries, and it is literary fiction to a large extent, but there's always a mystery writer because that was always something that people wanted to see. They wanted to talk to women who wrote mysteries. They wanted to talk about mysteries.
And
Well, I
last
did.
year,
Oh, go ahead, Jan.
this year for the Literary Guild, we had Anne Hillerman, and everybody loved her, and that was wonderful.
Tony
And
Hillerman's daughter, of
yeah,
course.
Tony, right?
Yeah.
And then also Stella Stava, Sophie
Sophie
Stava, and then who was the other?
Nicole Harrison.
Nicole Harris, yeah. And then the year before, we had Ivy Pachota, we had Kiera or Cara Rhoda,
Ruda.
and I can't remember the other person.
Sorry, I don't either.
We and of course the literary group is in September, and then we've got this in November. So we are really intensely involved. Oh, we're very involved in the Literary Guild also in getting the authors and organizing and all that. And that event's about 100 women. And we've been having it, as Cindy said, as a salon in the evening at the Mission Viejo Country Club, which is lovely.
Yeah.
And when we did have it years ago, when it was a 2-day event, we had 3 main speakers and 4 breakout rooms, and we covered all the genres. It wasn't just one. We made sure we had one outstanding person in each genre, and it was very, very popular. Kind of like the ones that they have in Long Beach, the Literary Guild.
Literary women, yeah.
Literary women.
Yeah, similar to that. Yeah.
Well,
And
the one thing I guess I would say really quick here is I think there's a big difference between having a focus on a group of folks and being exclusionary. And there's one thing I can absolutely say, there's nothing about this event that's exclusionary. This
Thank
is
you.
this is one of the most welcoming events, as I was saying earlier, that I've ever been part of. And the fact that it just happens to be focused on male authors, I think that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So my wife always says I'm a far bigger feminist than she is. So I guess if I'm saying it, but I really believe that. I think, anyone who might have a thought like that, don't. This is a great event for everybody, and there's nothing exclusionary about it that I can
Thank
see.
you.
thank you.
One of the things also is that when we moved the venue from Orange County to Long Beach, the venue where we are right now, in fact, today,
We're sitting in one of the boardrooms of the Grand, which is an event venue, and it's lovely. It's wonderful, and they can accommodate our group very nicely, and I think it's well set in between people from the north coming down and from the south coming up. It's centrally located. And the airport's just right here, so it helps Long Beach Airport. It's very convenient. We have a relationship with the Residence Inn by Marriott, which is just 2 doors down the street. So
Yeah.
it's the setting, the venue, everything is convenient to the attendees. Plus, we have free parking, which
Yes.
is
Yes.
massive
Yeah.
because
Try finding that anywhere else in Southern California.
Oh, it's way up.
That's
All
right.
the hotels are, you're paying $30 and $40 a day. Just to
Yeah.
park the car.
Yeah.
Well, the last thing I wanted to just, you mentioned, Jen, just really briefly, but the future. I mean, none of us are getting any younger. I think we all know that.
Now,
And, these events are a tremendous amount of work. It's not always easy to find someone else to pick up the baton. How are you feeling about the future? I mean, is this something you're just going to do as long as you possibly can? Is there, or do you have an end date? I don't want to, put any ideas in anyone's head, but I'm just, how do you see the future of the event in the next maybe 5 or 10 years?
well, Cindy and I have talked about that, and it was a couple years ago, and she said, "How much longer do you think we're going to do this? How much longer do you want to do this?" And I said, "As long as we can." I didn't want to make a 5-year plan or this or that. Plus, we have a scholarship, which we didn't mention anything about. And the scholarship fund is huge. And we try to get young people from college, and we raise money to have a $1,000 scholarship. And we're hoping that a lot of these young people that are getting the scholarships and go on to do journalism or writing or whatever might be inspired to, at least in the interim before they start their life cycle, that they become more involved in our event at least once a year. And so that's where we're kind of working on it. Plus, we always welcome more committee members, and we made a really wonderful connection with a college professor that received her scholarship from the Literary Guild when she was in high school, and she came back, and now she's been a tremendous value to us in helping Charlotte Thinklia with supplying us with the scholarship recipients for the Literary Guild and the Men of Mystery twice. So yeah, it's been, and she's young, and she has a lot of teachers that are real enthusiastic. So we're hoping that that's going to work.
Well,
And
oh,
when
I'm sorry.
Joan,
Go ahead, Cindy. I keep cutting you off. I don't mean to. I apologize.
that's okay. When Joan started this, Joan Hansen started the various organizations. She also started children's book festivals and all kinds of things.
Right.
But she always intended for it to be something that new people would come along. And it was often educators like herself. So a lot of our folks are either former teachers or principals or counselors, things like that. So we're looking to sort of, try and help incorporate folks like that to come forward and carry on the tradition. And certainly we're happy to do it for a while longer, but at some point somebody else will take the reins and we'll see what happens with that.
Yes.
And we're looking forward to supporting that
Well,
effort as well.
I hope that in whatever iteration, the Men of Mystery goes on forever because, we cannot, in my view, and I'm sure you agree with this, we cannot do enough to encourage people of all ages to read more than we do. Um, we're in a world with media saturation of all kind. We're being distracted by small screens, big screen, all kinds of things. And to me, there's still nothing in this world better than a book, a good book.
Yeah.
And I really laud people like you that encourage and celebrate authors and celebrate reading and celebrate storytelling. Because it is something that's a little bit under attack around the country, and so I think it's a great thing that you support it and have supported it for so long and continue to support it, because we all benefit from all of it. I really believe that sincerely. So I want to say kudos. Thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate that. I always like to end the show, and I wasn't sure how I was going to do this because there's two of you, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I always end my show the same way. I ask my guest, I'm going to give you three options, or we're going to pretend for just a minute I'm omnipotent and I can put you together with any one of the following three people. Let's just say you can have one of these people be the keynote speaker at the next Men of Mystery. I can pull them out of history and they can be your speaker. Um,
Oh,
who
oh,
who now one of them's kind of I probably screwed the pooch on this a little bit, but anyway, I'm just going to give it to you anyway. Who would you choose and why? And the options that I'm going to give you are Edgar Allan Poe, Arthur Conan Doyle, or Agatha Christie. Obviously, one of those doesn't fit in that group if we're going to talk men, but still, let's just say it didn't matter. Who would you pick and why?
go lady.
Wow. That's a hard choice.
And that's where I put you on the spot, but
Right.
it's meant to be a fun question, so have whatever fun with it you would like.
Well, I have to sort of balance it. I love Edgar Allan Poe. I don't know that he would be a reliable speaker or would have been a reliable speaker since he was often on opium. Um, on the other hand, Arthur Conan Doyle killed off Sherlock Holmes. So, as much as I love both of those, I mean, like most people, I started reading Sherlock Holmes as a kid, as the stories, and that's part of what I love about mysteries. But as an English major, I love Edgar Allan Poe's stories, the way that the arabesque and grotesque and things work together. But of course, as a woman, I have to think how wonderful to have Agatha Christie as one of our, even though she doesn't have a man's name. So it'd be really hard for me to pick. I think probably I would go with Arthur Conan Doyle. How about you?
Well, I love the way that you elaborated on each one of those, and I cannot best you. I think that that was perfect. And under those circumstances, I think Agatha Christie would be fascinating. Um, she would bring the historical aspect and such a variety of things that are that people can relate to, and on a level that all people, all ages, I think, could appreciate her style and her magic. She has a little magic in there,
Hmm.
and just her folksiness. I think that all of that would be appealing. So I think that would be. Thank goodness you didn't give me anybody tougher.
Well, I will say this. I agree with you about Agatha Christie, and especially from one perspective, is that I think even in a room full of men watching her, they would all have to acknowledge they were influenced by her almost as much as anybody else,
Yes.
either of the other two, right? She's on the top of that mountain for a reason. So,
Yeah.
When I was younger, I used to have the summers off from working or from being. I worked at a university, so I had the summers off a lot of times, and I would pick an author and read everything I could of theirs. And one summer, I read all of Agatha Christie's novels through that point, which I think was 25 at that point, something like that. And so I really enjoyed those. And I remember that summer so fondly because every time I'd read one, I'd think, oh, I know where this is going. And it
Oh
would
yeah.
always be a surprise,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
she's
So
a master.
yes, she
Well,
was.
ladies, thanks again. I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a lot of fun to talk about Men of Mystery again. I encourage anybody, it's in November every year. If you haven't attended one, you really should check it out because it's a really great event. Next year will be number 26. So
Yes.
that,
And
that
it's also going to be on November 7th. I was told to say 7th.
November
Yeah.
7th next year. So just check out the website, menofmystery.com. You'll find it. Anyway, great event. You'll get an opportunity to meet some of the best mystery authors out there anywhere, and it's fun, and it's a worthy use of time on a day. It's a really really great event. Highly
Uh,
recommend it.
Thank you, Rich.
I would also like to say all of your viewers that if there's any author that is interested in coming to Men of Mystery, to please send the email to menofmystery@gmail.com, and we'll pick that up and run with it and contact them and see where it goes.
And the link to the site, all that stuff will be in the show notes as well. Should be easy enough to find. But yes, if anyone really can't figure it out, I'm telling you, menofmystery.com, you'll find it, and you'll get Jan's site.
Menofmystery.org.
.org.
Or .org. I'm sorry. I should know that. I run a nonprofit. So anyway,
Yeah.
ladies, thanks again. I'm going to remind everybody one last time, if you haven't hit subscribe, please do so. That would be great. Or as I said, please tell a friend. And unless you hated the show, then please don't say anything to anybody. But I really think if you have friends who are interested in writing, if you have friends that are interested in expanding their reading, this is a great place to do it because I like to think the folks who come on here do so because they really do want to share information about their craft, and so I have a good time. I hope you did too. Please hit subscribe. The last thing I'll say before I sign us off is, tomorrow is not promised to any of us, so whatever you do, make today count. For my guests, Jan Wilcox and Cindy Woods of Men of Mystery, I'm Rich Eisen. This has been the Open Mic, Writers in Their Own Words. I will see you next time.